The presenter, Dr. Christian Jessen, has been ordered to pay Northern Ireland's First Minister £125,000 in damages following a defamatory tweet he posted in 2019. Dr. Jessen wrote an unfounded claim that Arlene Foster had been having an extramarital affair. The social media post remained online until it was deleted by the television doctor a couple of weeks later. At the High Court in Belfast, a judge said the tweet to Dr. Jessen's 300,000 Twitter followers had attacked Mrs. Foster's integrity at a most fundamental level. Well, with us now is Steve Kuncewicz, a partner at the law firm BLM and a specialist in social media law. Good morning.
Good morning, Martin.
Firstly, what are your thoughts on the outcome here? Does it send a message to people who might be in the habit of making allegations on social media?
I think it certainly could do. It very much says that it reinforces the position that what you do and say online is treated just as seriously, depending on the allegation and how far it gets, as, say, if it were made in a national newspaper or on TV. What I'm not sure about is whether or not everybody who originally saw the allegation is now aware of how this worked out. So the more cases we see like this, I think the message will start to permeate through. Yeah,
that's the danger, isn't it? He's got 300,000 followers and it'll have been retweeted by lots of people. It'll be, what's the old saying, that a lie goes around the world before the truth's got its boots on, and yet not all that many people necessarily will be aware of this judgment.
No, that's exactly right. But of course, the reason the judgment was so high, or the value of the judgment was so high, is because he's got that many followers, and is because it was available for a good 2 weeks before the tweet came down, despite the fact that Miss Foster's lawyer told him to do so.
Yeah. Does this set precedent, Steve?
Oh, yeah, it certainly does. It absolutely does. I mean, it's relatively rare for libel awards to be this high. But when you're in a position like Arlene Foster's and when you're making an allegation like this, that does go to the heart of her credibility, and she is such a big figure in the public eye, they can occasionally get to this point. So awards like this are relatively rare, but certainly there'll be an awful lot of people in similar situations that will look to it and say, well, you owe me a similar amount of money.
And how well regulated? There's a whole load of criticism about a lack of regulation. It's the Wild West, the kind of social media space. But Britain is comparatively well regulated, isn't it, compared to other places?
Well, I wouldn't say it's well regulated. We're going to be seeing something called the Online Safety Bill make its way back to Parliament in the UK fairly shortly, which is designed to deter harm on social media platforms. That's going to be a world-first system of regulation. There's plenty of law that applies to social media, in this case defamation law, there's criminal law, so on and so forth. So I think we're about as well regulated as it's possible to be when you're looking at a system that has a global reach and is in a number of different countries.
Yeah, I heard Arlene Foster interviewed actually in the BBC's Newscast podcast yesterday. She's calling for a wholesale tightening of the rules on social media. She says it's absurd, and it seems not unreasonable to suggest it's absurd that these accounts can publish what they like with no way of linking them back to an individual. And she's calling for identification to be behind that. You don't have to identify yourself on your account, she says, but somebody has to know who's writing this stuff. Is that realistic? Because it seems fair, doesn't it?
Well, there's been a move towards greater transparency and greater accountability among social media platforms for a good few years now. The debate around identification has gone on for even longer than that. And if you remember the public, say Arlene Foster knew who she was accused by here. There's an awful lot of people don't. Anonymous allegations can, like you say, spread around the world really quickly, and your average man in the street doesn't necessarily have the funds available to try and get a court order against someone like Twitter, against a business like Twitter in the US, and unmask who's actually behind it. So certainly I can see the arguments for it, but I think it raises a number of other civil liberty and privacy issues that are actually quite difficult to untangle.
How tricky is it and how expensive is it for somebody, just, your regular punter who finds themselves the victim of something online to raise a court action? Is it a prohibitively expensive and risky endeavour?
If you know who it is, it's not maybe as difficult as you think it is, but certainly once you're actually in the stage where you've issued proceedings, it costs so many £1,000s just to get to that point, and every step of the court process does involve expense. And of course, if you lose, you're responsible potentially for the lion's share of the other side's cost as well. So to get to that point isn't necessarily something that's ever going to make you money, but the whole point of a defamation claim is that you're meant to be getting vindication for the damage that's done to your reputation. It's just unfortunate that not everybody can afford to make that kind of investment.
Yeah, and I guess all these claims are part of the greater good. They build a picture, don't they? It's so easy for people to just bang out a stream of consciousness on social media that perhaps incidents like these help to remind you to think twice.
Oh, they do. And what the platforms themselves have done as well is building features to kind of force you to think twice. If you look at Twitter, for example, when you retweet something, you're asked if you want to read the underlying article, and it's the same on Facebook as well. So the platforms are taking a little bit of responsibility, and we're maybe moving towards people being held more responsible, but it's still quite a young medium, social media. And I think people are still getting used to the fact that you can say things like this and they'll have a real and quite a permanent impact.
Yeah, we're learning a lot about social media as we go, aren't we, to the cost of some people. Right, listen, Steve Kuncewicz, thank you very much indeed for your expertise this morning.